the Rambler Network.
Step right up, ladies and gents, a show for the ages, a spectacle of silent silver. Gather around, folks, don't be shy. A real humdinger of a picture awaits. Thrills, chills, and plenty of laughs. From the golden days of flickering reels and grand Nickelodeons comes a program most extraordinary. A real corker of a show, a top-notch talkie about a world with no talk at all. It's Casablanca Silent Treatment. This episode is going to be a little different from the rest of the episode this season. This isn't talking about a single silent film. In fact, this is a documentary about silent films. I consider it to be the main documentary on silent films. I know there are a bunch of them. This is Hollywood, a celebration of the American silent film. It's from 1980. It is a British documentary series, and it was written and directed by Kevin Brownlow and David Gill. It was narrated by James Mason, and it features interviews from silent film legends such as Lillian Gish, Douglas Fairbanks Jr., Colleen Moore, Gloria Swanson, Jackie Coogan, and a bunch more. Now, the episode, unfortunately, it hasn't been re-released like on DVD or anything. Not that I found it on VHS for like $700, but I'm not doing that. I'm not going to do that. It is, however, available on YouTube. There is a playlist on YouTube. That's how I watched it this time. I've seen it a bunch of times before. First time I saw it was, I think, like back in 2011 on YouTube. And yeah, every time I've seen it was on YouTube. And I recently found out, when I was near the end of watching it this time, the entire thing is on archive.org. And it's in higher quality than what I've seen it. And obviously, because it's archive.org, it's completely free to download. So I don't fear the YouTube one being deleted for copyright. But yeah, if you do want to watch it, I highly recommend the archive.org version because, again, higher quality. But if you don't care about the quality and just want to watch it, it is on YouTube. I will link that down in, I'm used to a YouTube video, down in the description. I will link that in the description of the show episode. So I'm going to kind of go through some of the episodes and like what they were about. Like the first episode was about it's called Pioneers, or The Pioneers. And it talked about like motion experiments and like the early days. It talked about like the very early days, how like the history of the motion picture. Thomas Edison basically had the patent on held the copyright on the camera. Don't have time to get into it now. I am not a fan of Thomas Edison. And everybody is always talking about, oh, he is one of the greatest inventors of all time. Nah, he never invented anything. He was a businessman. And he just took credit of it's a whole I could do a whole episode on him. I don't like him. And but I will say that because of his greed, it's the reason that we have Hollywood the way we have it. Because originally, the early days of the motion picture was in like New York, New Jersey, that area. But that's the area where Thomas Edison was, and he would send his lawyers after them saying, hey, you can't do that. Like, he wanted a cut of everything, and he was like, well, that's my thing, and you can't use it for that, and blah, 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 blah. So what do they do? They went to the West Coast and went to Hollywood. Hollywood was an actual town at the time. It was a small town. It was like a farm, and it was very quiet. And then these filmmakers came along. In the early days, it was not, they didn't come in and immediately change the landscape. It was very minimal, and it gradually became what it is today. But this first episode, The Pioneers, is basically about that, like the early days of the motion picture before Hollywood became Hollywood. And like comedy was like a really common genre in the like especially the early days. It was like very because like slapstick. It was very popular at the time. Not so much now, unfortunately. People want like vulgarity in their humor, and I don't know. I always feel if you have to be vulgar to be funny, you're not funny. But anyway, the birth of the feature film. It talks about D.W. Griffith and the birth of a nation, which is a very controversial film. It wasn't the first feature-length film. It was like maybe one of the first big epics, and it was a very controversial movie at the time that it released. But because of that, because people realized that worked, um, films became getting longer and more ambitious and more experimental. Audience start following the people, not just the films. Like two examples: Douglas Fairbanks and Mary Pickford. They were two of the biggest stars of the silent era, and they were husband and wife. And the two of them, plus Charlie Chaplin, went on to create United Artists, which was a studio that was basically run by the stars. Because the other studios weren't really treating the stars correctly, so they were like, hey, let's just do it ourselves. But yeah, like there are 13 episodes total, and each one covers a different aspect of the silent era. And it just basically goes to show that like the silent films were never silent. We just had to learn how to listen to them basically. I keep trying to stress to people that silent films are not boring. It's every time I tell people I'm doing the season, I get the same thing almost every single time I tell people I'm doing the season. They say, "Oh, those are boring." You haven't watched them. If you think silent films are boring, you just haven't watched them. And there's 13 episodes in this show to show you why they're not boring. If you don't watch any movie that I cover this season, at least watch the documentary, because it basically covers the whole history of the silent era and explains why the silent era was as important as it was and isn't boring. Like I I'm just so frustrated that that's like the number one thing that like they just always say it's boring. That's boring. That's boring. That's boring. That's boring. That's boring. That's boring. Have you watched one? Like I don't want to just keep saying that over and over again all season. So like I'm trying not to say it anymore, but like I mean, if there's if there's an episode this season to continuously say that, it's this one, because this is a documentary talking about silent films and like why they're great. But yeah, At least watch this one. I will put a link down below in the show notes, in the description or whatever, to the playlist on YouTube. And I'll also link to the one on archive.org, because that is a better quality copy, but I feel like the YouTube one is a little bit more accessible because you just click it and it starts playing. The archive one you still have to download, and I know not everyone's going to want to download them. They're not big files, really. I mean that's depends on how much space you have, but again, I think the YouTube one might be a little more accessible. So I'll put both down below, and I highly recommend watching at least this one. If you don't watch anything else this season that I talk about, watch this. And cut. Step right up, folks. Don't let the show end here. If you enjoyed tonight's picture, there's plenty more waiting just beyond the curtain. Follow the show on Instagram at Rambler Network. And for even more stories that spark curiosity, step right this way to RamblerNetwork.com, your one-stop destination for all things Rambler Network. So don't be a stranger and miss the next attraction, because the show is always just getting started.
The Rambler Network.